Yeah, so we're here to launch out one of our new tyres called the Michelin Pilot Super Sport. So it's really the top end in terms of tyres for road cars. So I'm sure you'll experience the car on the track and really enjoy the performance of the tyre. My name's Steve Dolby. I'm in charge of the product marketing section at Michelin, so on the car, van and 4x4 tyres. I spent many years at Michelin. I've been with Michelin for over 30 years now. And about 18 of those years was in the tyre test department. So I've helped to set up the tests that we're going to do today. And hopefully you're all going to enjoy being test drivers for the day, or for the afternoon at least. So you should have a bit of fun doing that. What I'm going to start off doing is just to explain a bit about the Pilot Super Sport and where it fits in with the Michelin tyre range. So just looking at, this is a segmentation chart. So it's looking at the bottom of the chart here, we've got the more economical, smaller cars, if you like. Moving up the chart, we've got the high performance, more prestigious cars. So you can see a number of cars there. What we're going to do is associate a type of tyre to the type of car. So if you look at the bottom end towards the more economical cars, the smaller cars, and the more comfort orientated versions of those cars, things like the Volkswagen Golf, the Mini, Fiat 500, that's a typical area for the Michelin Energy Saver. So it's really a mass market tyre for mass market sort of vehicles. But you do get sporty versions of those vehicles. So if you come over here more to this sports side, you've got things like the sports version of the Golf, like the Golf R, Mini Cooper S, Fiat 500 Abarth, and that's really the sports versions of the more comfortable vehicles, and that's a typical area for the Pilot Sport 3, which we launched last year. If you move up the scale in terms of speed and performance, on the sports side we've got the new Pilot Super Sports, that's the tyre we're talking about today. On the comfort side, for things like the big Audis, big Mercedes, BMWs, and some of the larger fleet cars, even up to the Rolls-Royce, we've got the Primacy HP. So the Primacy HP is more the high performance tyre, but for comfort vehicles. The very high performance tyre for sports vehicles is the new Pilot Super Sport. That's fitted to cars like Bmw M3, Porsche 911, Bugatti Veyron, all these sort of cars like this, and cars you've seen outside, Lamborghinis, Audi R8s, those sort of vehicles. So it's really at the top end of the sports tyre for road tyres that you'll see now from the Michelin range. Effectively, if anybody knows the previous Michelin range, Pilot Sport 2 has really been replaced by two tyres, Pilot Sport 3, so we're at the lower end of the sports category, and at the higher end, Pilot Super Sport. So we've really separated the very high performance tyres in terms of Pilot Super Sport. It's just a little asterisk against the Porsche 911. We will be trying quite a few Porsche 911s this afternoon, and a few Caymans and Boxers. The tyre we're showing today isn't actually Porsche approved, so it hasn't gone through all Porsche's homologation process. If anybody knows anything about tyres, once a tyre's been approved by Porsche, it has an N marking on the sidewall to show it's been approved by Porsche. The Pilot Super Sport isn't approved by Porsche yet, and it's not expected to be fitted or approved by Porsche until the middle of next year. So what you're trying today, if you like, is pre-N marked tyres, so they're not actually the Porsche approved fitment. But equally, with the competitors that you'll be trying as well, they're not Porsche approved either, so we're sort of comparing like for like from that point of view. So there won't be any Pilot Super Sport tyres for Porsches until at least middle of next year, so August next year. So just so that's clear. That's really how the Michelin range in terms of car tyres fits together. Fairly straightforward. So just looking at the sort of drivers and people who are going to buy these tyres. They're really people who are very passionate about the driving. Obviously people with these sort of cars really love the driving. They're really into that sort of thing. They also look on the internet a lot. They'll search on blogs and forums. They might be members of forums. So they look to see what other people have written about the tyres, and even look in specialist press. They take account of the brands as well, and the credentials of the brand in terms of performance, technology, these sort of areas. So the brands are important. And also they're swayed by the brand's involvement in motorsport. And Michelin have got a very big history in motorsport, and obviously now we're involved in motorsport a lot. Looking at the heritage of Michelin, it sort of dates back from the 1890s. I wasn't around in those days, by the way, so I know I'm getting on a bit now, but this was actually before my time. I won't go all through this, but we've been involved in motorsport for a long time. For example, we won the first Le Mans 24-hour race in 1923. We've been involved in Formula 1 for 2 different periods, at 102 first places in Formula 1. More recently, we've been involved with the World Rally Championship, and we're back into that this year. But importantly, from the Pilot Super Sports point of view, this is our new high performance tyre. We're involved with Le Mans racing, so that's endurance racing, where the tyre has to last a long time but also give good performance for a long time. So there's quite a close link between the Pilot Super Sport and the Le Mans type tyres, which have to give very good performance but over a large number of laps. So in Le Mans we've had, we had the 1, 2, 3 last year, The last 13 years we've been victors at Le Mans as well, so a lot of influence there on our road tyres as well. So passing on to the new tyre now, the Michelin Pilot Super Sport. The sort of strapline for this tyre is born from endurance racing for the most exhilarating drive. So hopefully you're going to see that this afternoon, the exhilarating drive out on the track. And for each of our tyres we have what we call talking points nowadays. So it really summarises the tyre's performance in a few phrases. The tyre is actually specially engineered for super sports cars and ultra high performance tuning. But the talking points are really about safety, even in the most demanding conditions. So there we're talking about safety in the wet in particular, and wet braking performance. And you'll see there it says 3 metres shorter braking distance on wet roads. And that's comparing the Pilot Super Sport with its predecessor, Pilot Sport 2. There's my phone. I'll just turn it off. Sorry about that. That should be the start of any presentation, shouldn't it? Switch your phones off. Okay. And also we mentioned there the fact we've run the last 13 Le Mans 24-hour races as well, which and technology sort of leads off into this sports tyre area. One of the other claims, talking points, is the best dry handling. So it's quite a big claim, I guess. I think it's switching itself on again. Hold on. So it's quite a big claim, the best in dry handling. So that's actually been tested by an independent testing authority called the TÜV. They're a big authority that are based throughout the world, but in this case the test was in Germany. They tested the Pilot Super Sport against its major premium competitors and found not only did it give the fastest lap times, it also gave the best subjective appraisal as well. So subjectively the tyres felt the best on the cars, and they also got the fastest lap time. So hence the claims, #1 in dry handling and the fastest tyre. We also fit tyres onto the Bugatti Veyron, which is the fastest production car in the world at the moment. So Michelin tyres are also equipped the fastest road cars in the world, so it also helps to back up that claim of Michelin having the fastest tyre. We've developed the Pilot Super Sport along with some of the really high performance car manufacturers. So we're talking about Porsche, BMW and Ferrari, who obviously put a lot of emphasis on the handling of the tyres and handling of the cars. So that really pushes the development of the tyre, especially in the handling direction. So that's really helps the development of the tyre. So that's the key talking points about the tyres. So what about the performance? So this chart here is going to explain the performance compared to the Pilot Sport PS2. That's effectively the tyre it's replacing. In the yellow here, we've got the performance of the PS2, the tyre it's replacing, and in the blue we've got the performance of the Pilot Super Sport. The further outside the circle you are compared to the original tyre, the PS2, the better the performance basically. So for each performance we've got something there. So in terms of mileage on the road, it's 10% greater mileage we're expected to see in normal road driving. So it's a significant improvement there. Probably for the drivers who like to go on tracks like we're going to do this afternoon, the track mileage is going to be significantly better. So we reckon 50% more laps if you're driving on tracks. So for the person who drives a high performance car, maybe doing the odd track day now and again, this should be a really good tyre. With the wear is much reduced in the shoulder area compared to some other tyres. In terms of road holding in the dry, so tested on our test headquarters track out in France, 1.5 seconds quicker per lap in terms of dry handling. So if anybody follows Formula 1, 1.5 seconds is really night and day. This is comparing the Pilot Super Sport with the tyre that's very good anyway, the Pilot Sport PS2. So dry road handling is very good. Dry braking is improved by 1.5 metres. That's from 100 kilometres an hour, so just over 60 miles an hour. In the wet braking, we mentioned earlier on that wet braking distance is 3 metres shorter. That's compared to the PS2 in the wet. And that's with an industry standard test now, which you'll see more and more of in the future when tyre labelling comes into play. But the standard test is from 80 kilometres an hour down to 20 kilometres an hour. That's about 50 down to 12, with the braking distances measured in wet conditions. We'll be repeating that test actually this afternoon with some cars out on the track, which I'll explain a bit more about later. But there is now an industry standard in terms of wet braking tests, which we're sort of reproducing to some extent out on the tracks this afternoon. Wet handling as well, road handling in the wet, 2.5 seconds quicker on a wet handling track, again out in our test headquarters in France, so quite a significant improvement compared to PS2. So we've improved all these drive-related aspects like handling, wet and dry braking, etc., without any sacrifice in areas like aquaplaning, fuel saving and noise and comfort. So there's no areas we've made any compromise in those areas. And the PS2, Pilot Sport PS2 was always very good in those areas anyway. but we really focus on the more driver orientated, the sports type performance that people appreciate when they're driving behind the wheel. So how have we improved the tyre? What have we done to improve the tyre? There's three main technologies I'm just going to mention very briefly about the construction of the tyre in particular and its compounds. Firstly, we've got a Twaron belt. You might wonder what that is, but I'll explain that in detail in a minute. A bi-compound, so the compound actually changes across the tyre, so we've got two compounds within the tyre itself. And the way we've designed the contact patch to work means a lot more stable handling characteristics in corners, and we call that variable contact patch 2. So there's a short video clip to explain these little bits and bits of technology and how they work. Twaron really is a material a bit like Kevlar, so it's very, very strong, but very, very light, 6 times stronger than steel in a weight-for-weight basis. And it's wound around the outside of the tyre as a 0-degree belt, but it's actually wound tighter in the centre than on the shoulder area. And when you're going very, very fast, it's more the centre of the tyre that tends to expand due to centrifugal force. So by having a tighter winding in the centre of the tyre with this Twaron belt, we can reduce that expansion, if you like, and keep it very flat at very high speeds. So there's just a very short clip here that explains how that works. Oops, that's gone forward a bit too far. This is a car being driven along the road, and we'll see the effect of the Twaron belt that sort of really maintains the shape of the tyre at very high speeds when there's strong centrifugal force on the tyre. That's the belt going on there. You'll see in the centre it's actually pulled tighter than in the shoulder area, which maintains a very flat profile, so even when you're going very fast. So the key benefit for the driver is very good stability at very high speeds. So we'll see some of that on the tracks this afternoon. So that's the Twaron belt. So the next part of the technology is all about the dual compound technology. So we've got two different compounds across the tread, and actually on the outside part of the tread it's a sort of a very hard handling compound. It's actually derived from the Le Mans 24 Hours compound as well. So it gives you very good performance when you're doing a lot of dry handling under extreme conditions. Let's go back to the video clip. This really explains what the dual compound technology is all about. So on the outside, if you're cornering hard, for example, this car's cornering around to the left-hand side, it's the outside of the tyre that takes all the cornering force when you're cornering very hard. And we've got a very good hard handling compound with carbon black that's actually used. It's exactly the same carbon black that's used in the Le Mans 24-hour race tyres. So it's a very durable compound for very good dry handling. And the rest of the tyre, which is actually the majority of the tyre, is more a wet orientated compound, so it gives you very good wet performance. So you see out on the tracks later on, it gives you very good wet braking performance and very good wet cornering performance. So that's the dual compound technology to give you very good dry performance and a durable performance on the track, and very good braking in the dry as well, sorry, in the wet. Okay, so next we've got the variable contact patch 2. So we've evolved the same sort of system that's on PS2. It's been evolved more for Pilot Super Sport. So I'll just go on to the video clip for this one as well. If you can press the right button. What we're trying to do here is keep a constant amount of rubber in contact with the road. So whether you're going in a straight line, you have a contact patch shape that's something like that, fairly symmetrical. In this case, you'll see about 170 square centimetres of rubber in contact with the road. When you corner, the shape changes. You can see that shape change. But actually, the way we've designed the tread pattern, the construction, the amount of rubber stays exactly the same. So whether you're cornering or in a straight line, the amount of rubber in contact with the road stays the same to give you very stable handling characteristics and consistent between straight line and cornering. And also we've eliminated some of the hot spots in the tyre to give a more even distribution of temperature and pressure across the tyre, especially when you're cornering hard. That's the variable contact patch. Just over to the sizes. The size range, you can see it's very much a high-end tyre in the fact that it goes from 18 inches to 22 inches in terms of rim diameter. So starting for vehicles like some of the Audis, Audi TT, Audi A6, Nissan 350Z in 18 inch, some BMWs, 19 inch, many sports cars come on 19 inch tyres now, and quite a few of the cars you'll see here today, Lamborghinis, BMWs, are on 19 inch. But we've also got tyres 235, 35, 19 that can go on cars like the Focus RS. Moving on to 20 inch, we're looking into like Ferrari territory there, and getting onto the high performance tuning sizes up to 21, 22 inches. So it's quite a wide range, but very much at the top end in terms of tyre sizes in the marketplace. And we're working with other car manufacturers to develop other tyres for their original equipment needs as well. So you see more sizes coming onto the market. So the PS2, Pilot Sport PS2, had over 200 original equipment approvals, so it's very much liked by the car manufacturers. So the Pilot Super Sport started off on a good way, so it's taken up the challenge of the PS2. These are just some examples of the cars that the Pilot Super Sport is homologated on, or technically approved on. We've got cars like the Ferrari 458 Italia, the Ferrari 599 GTO, so that was 100% fitted with the Pilot Super Sport in 20-inch sizes. Also tuned cars like the BMW, which is the Alpina B5, and I don't see too many of these about in the UK, but the Koenigsegg Agera, that's the latest Koenigsegg car. That's a very, very glamorous car, very, very fast car. And they had one of those out in the launch in Dubai, which I was lucky enough to go to. Didn't get to drive that car, but it's a great car. Mr. Koenigsegg was there, apparently managed to sell a car at the time. So very expensive car, but very, very fast, but 100% fitted on Pilot Super Sport. Just a quick look at the competitors. So obviously these are the premium competitors that we're mainly pitching the Pilot Super Sport against. So we've got tyres like the Bridgestone Potenza S001, Continental Sport Contact 5P. They're both launched just last year, so very new products. Dunlop SB Sport Max GT, the Goodyear Eagle F1 asymmetric. Goodyear just in the process of replacing that tyre with an asymmetric 2. Unfortunately, that tyre wasn't available in the sizes that we're testing today, so we haven't got that tyre here today. But we have got the Pirelli P0 and all the other tyres that you see there. You'll be able to test the Pilot Super Sport against those tyres out on the track today. So you should enjoy that. So it's just an overview of the new tyre. I'm going to go into the sort of tests that we're going to be carrying out this afternoon. You will see that if you look on your badges, yeah, it's not this morning's one, it's this afternoon's one, there we go. On your badges you've got some coloured dots, so you're all separated into 3 different teams. So you've got blue team, green team and red team. So the blue team, once we're finished here in a few minutes, the blue team will be going to the dry handling test first, then wet grip testing, then driving control. The green team, wet grip, driving control, dry handling. And the red team, driving control, dry handling, wet grip. Then once we finish those tests, that's going to take about an hour each for each session. You'll be coming back in here very briefly, and then we're going out for some supercar rides. We'll be a passenger in some of the exotic cars you've seen outside. For all the other tests, you'll be driving yourselves, or those who are eligible to drive at least, you'll be driving for yourselves to feel the differences yourselves. Just a little bit more about the tests. So the dry handling, we're hoping to prove the fact that we have got the best dry handling. That was mentioned in the talking points for the tyre, but you get to try the tyre on, this will be on Porsche 911s. It'll be on the dry handling track that Porsche have got here in their facility. We're looking at tyre technology like the variable contact patch 2.0 and the Twaron belts are coming into action, giving you the excellent dry handling. There'll be a couple of Porsche 911s comparing Michelin Super Sport against a premium competitor tyre. You'll have a look and we'll mention what that is when you're out there. And another couple of Porsche 911s trying the Michelin against another competitor tyre. So they're both very nice spec 911s, Carrera 2Ss, so that's the increased horsepower version of the Porsche 911. So there'll be 4 people out on the track at the same time doing that comparison. The other 4 people from that group, because each group's got 8 people in, will be checking their own performance actually. So we've got a human performance centre here, which is actually used by many racing drivers to improve their fitness and performance out on the track. So you better test your own reactions, improve your reaction time, just check 1 or 2 things about your own performance in there. There will be a prize for the person who gets the best score on the BATAC machine, which is a reaction testing machine, like hand-eye coordination type machine. So I expect to see a bit of competition for a small prize during the afternoon. So that'll be a bit of fun for those people. And then halfway through that session we'll just swap over. So the next session, this will be where the green team goes first of all, actually will be the wet grip session. So we're talking about safety even under the most demanding conditions, as we mentioned in the talking points. We've got a couple of demonstrations laid on which you'll be driving yourselves. This will actually be on the COPS runway area, so it's not actually on this circuit here, but we've got a big area of tarmac that we'll be using for that we can wet. So we've got a wet braking comparison with a couple of BMWs, 325i M Sport Coupes. Again, one with Michelin, one with a premium competitor tyre. And on the wet cornering, we've got a couple of Audi TTs where we're going around in a big circle that's being wetted and just checking out the performance on that, comparing Michelin Pilot Super Sport with the competitor. So things like the feel of the car, how quick it is around the corner, how quickly it breaks away and how easy it is to control. So we're looking there at the tyre technology, things like the dual compound tread that's working there. You'll be transported to that area in some Porsche Cayennes, so it's just on the infield side of the Silverstone main circuit, and there'll be a Michelin hospitality unit there for teas and coffees and biscuits, just in case you didn't have enough lunch earlier on. That's the wet grip area. Last session will be a real fun session, I think. It's the driving control sessions. So we'll be using the Porsche kick plate, which Gordon will explain a little bit about later on, and the low friction area. So the idea is just to see really how the Pilot Super Sport behaves on these low grip surfaces. You've got to test the vehicles, test the tyres, and also test your actions on these sort of circuits. So if you've already done the human performance, you'll be very tuned up, all ready to go out into the tracks. You might not do it in that order, but it may help you in terms of your actions, just correcting the slides of the cars. We've got 8 really nice cars. So 4 Porsche 911s, they're GTSs, which is a very nice spec of 911. A couple of 4-wheel drive 911s as well. So they're rear engine cars. Then Porsche Caymans and Boxsters, which are mid-engine cars. So you get a chance to drive one of each of those type of cars during that session. So you'll be out in the track all the time with those cars. And then we've got the supercar passenger rides. So these are some of the cars that we've got. I'll just briefly mention each one. We've got the R8, the Audi R8, which is a 420 brake horsepower V8 engine with a 4-wheel drive system, the Quattro 4-wheel drive system, 0 to 16, 4.6 seconds, and that's on 19-inch Pilot Super Sport. The object here is just to show how the Pilot Super Sport performs on these really high performance cars driven by professional drivers as well, so you really get to experience the performance really at the top end of what it's capable of. We've got a Bmw M3. So again, similar sort of brake horsepower to the Audi, but rear wheel drive this time. So 0 to 16, 4.6 seconds. Again, it's on the standard M3 sizes, but in the Pilot Super Sport pattern this time. We've got Lamborghini Gardo Balboni, if anybody watches Top Gear, maybe. It's been on Top Gear apparently. They were very impressed with the car, especially the stripe down the middle, which they really liked. But this was a limited edition version of the Lamborghini Gallardo. There's only 250 made worldwide, and apparently I was told there's only 4 in the UK. So quite lucky to get that. It's the only Lamborghini that's actually rear-wheel drive, Lamborghini Gallardo that's rear-wheel drive. All the others are 4-wheel drive. So it's a special edition created by Lamborghini's test driver, Valentino Balboni. So you've probably heard of him, no doubt. A bit like the Steve Dolby of the Lamborghini world, really. That'll be on 19-inch Pilot Super Sport. We've also got the Porsche 911 Turbo S, which is the latest evolution, the most powerful evolution of the Porsche Turbo, which was originally launched in 1974, the Porsche 911 Turbo, which in those days was a fantastic quick car, and it had 260 brake horsepower. Nowadays it's up to 530 with 4-wheel drive, so you really see what a high-performance car feels like with this particular car. 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds. And again, that's on 19-inch Pilot Super Sport. Again, it's not the Porsche approved tyre, but it's just an idea, so you can get an idea of the performance of the tyre. We will be modifying and tuning these tyres just to suit all Porsche's requirements in the future. That's when you'll start to see them fitted as original equipment, say from August next year, something like that.